Perfect. Okay, cool. So I guess first off, so a lot of these questions are kind of angled more to people who aren't as familiar with the space. Um, but I think it'd be interesting to get your perspective regardless, just to kind of standardize everything. Um, but okay, the very first question, how would you define food waste? Kind of, on your own individual definition.
Well, any food that doesn't isn't used productively for human consumption that we've grown. So food waste is a huge problem in the United States, and it occurs at the producer side, at the distribution side, at the retail side, and at the individual consumer side. And solving food waste actually at the individual consumer side can help cause all the others to fix themselves also. Although the upstream from the consumer side, businesses are very attuned to the bottom line. They don't
Right,
want to waste resources.
right.
So most factories actually are very close to zero waste.
Mm,
As far as I went to a meat packing plant, for instance,
mhm,
and they made sure every single part of that cow was used.
yeah.
Some ways, consumers are don't think that, wow, you do that with the cow and use that piece, and they might be a little bit turned off. But it's important to use all of your resources. So actually, upstream for the consumer, except for at the retail level, upstream, pretty much everything along the manufacturing side is used pretty well. We see a lot of waste at the supermarket level where a lot of stuff gets tossed prematurely, and there are a lot of people who actually lived dumpster diving, just find reasonably good
Oh,
food
wow.
that expired, it's actually still safe. But the consumer, that is a huge opportunity, and also one that you don't have to wait for that much government action. You can inspire people to waste less, but
Okay.
government action can help too. And we can go into more on that further in the interview if you want.
Okay, perfect.
How deep you want to go with the first few questions?
Yeah, no, like you touched on a lot of great points there. Yeah, and I definitely agree that like, yeah, it's definitely like upstream. It makes sense that they would like use every part of the re like it's resources for them, so
Resources.
why not put it, yeah, to work, right? So,
Actually, something
yeah,
like saying all waste is money lost
yeah,
for
yeah,
business, but they want
yeah,
to minimize the money they lose.
yeah. So in comparison, consumers are probably like up there at the worst, right? In terms
Yeah,
of
well, they're actually more tolerant of the waste because for them it's a smaller piece, and um,
right.
they aren't as profit driven
Right,
as
of course. Of course. Yeah, that makes sense. You kind of throw it away and then you've got to forget about it, right?
yeah, you
Yeah.
forget about it. Out of
Yeah,
sight, out of mind.
of course. Yeah. Okay, great. That was a great answer. Second question. There's actually like parts A, B, and C, but we can just start off going one by one. But it's have you used any resource to reduce food waste? So this would be like in your individual life. Obviously you have your website and then like about a lot of different resources and different methods and tools. But do any specific resources stand out to you? And again, this is more like on the individual focus. Um,
The resources, what are you thinking?
so this could be either like where do you go to like source, like tips, tricks, knowledge, best practices? Do you have like some sort of tool that you use to help you track, like how much food should I buy for this amount of time for this many people? Um, yeah, something along those lines, like what, like in your, individual day-to-day life.
The individual data life, I
Yeah.
do carefully plan how much we're buying to make sure we can
Okay.
consume it. And our refrigerator is actually our main metering mechanism. Like,
Okay.
we try to make sure that we don't throw any food out at all,
Okay.
and that all leftovers go into the fridge, and we eat leftovers down first before we make new stuff as much as
Okay.
possible. I mean, we do some get new things. Um, Education actually is the hardest thing with my wife and myself.
Mhm.
Well, in my generation, so my mom grew up during the Great Depression and she
Right.
instilled in me, I mean, she didn't waste food.
Right.
Well, sort of. Actually, she held on to too much to some extent. And her refrigerator was
Well, that
packed,
makes sense. It makes
which,
sense. Yeah.
which did create food waste because she couldn't use it all.
Right.
I've taken a slightly different approach where I don't pack my refrigerator and store a lot
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Um, I do store a lot of water there, so I have a lot of thermal mass in the refrigerator. That's
Okay.
also useful if we have an earthquake. I've got my water supply there, but it's also cool and I enjoy drinking it. And so we actually use that. And that's sort of a food waste reduction mechanism. So if our power goes out, our refrigerator stays colder longer because it has
Mm,
all this water in there that we can also use for earthquakes.
I
And
see.
also, we don't do use, I purposely didn't buy a refrigerator with a water spigot on it that provided just on-demand cold water.
Right.
I can store the cold water in the refrigerator, so it provides a thermal mass, and
Nice.
it's fewer parts that break. It's actually
Uh,
cheaper.
yeah.
The leading thing that refrigerators fail are the water systems in them because they're the ice and water breaks and you have to throw the refrigerator out or stop using it. So I actually
Yeah.
picked a refrigerator that I didn't have that. But then we use the refrigerator. I use a refrigerator to monitor how much backlog do we have? What do we have in there? And
Okay.
so I've got a few days worth of food in the refrigerator. Some things are longer storage from condiments, but otherwise I'm constantly monitoring the refrigerator and using it as my
I
barometer
see.
for,
I see.
oh, we've got too many leftovers. We're going to eat those first before I buy new stuff to
Okay.
make.
That's good.
We're trying not to
Yeah.
waste food there. That's one tool. The other resource tool, my city of Sunnyvale has food recycling program.
Okay.
So they actually take all food waste and make something useful out of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Most communities don't have any food recycling at all.
Mm,
In California, we're trying to reduce landfill stuff that goes to landfills, and food that goes to landfills generates a huge amount of climate
yeah.
change
Yeah.
gases and greenhouse gases, and methane, so forth. Um, so Sunnyvale and a few other cities have taken that, and they found processors who are willing to take food waste and turn it into something useful.
Interesting.
Now, for a lot of consumers, that has scared them because they think, "Oh man, food, I don't want that." But these consumers, they never grew up in a farm. They don't understand how ecosystems really work. They're just scared of the micro niche of,
Yeah.
they're scared of prions. They'll
Yeah.
come back because they,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
easy
Yeah, but
ways to
that's what
do
it
it.
is though. That's like how you make that's how you grow the food. And just yeah, it's the
Yeah.
process.
But it's all resources. So you figure out safe ways to reuse it.
Hmm.
And people need to pay more attention to real science and not junk science. And if you know how prions are perpetuate, you know that the process that like City of Sunnyvale uses,
Yeah.
there's no possibility of prions getting in there and
Right.
affecting anything
Right.
because the animals are immune to prions.
Right.
Prions, humans and cows are, but chickens and pigs aren't, which is where they use it for feed. And they also use the food for a digester to generate methane
Oh,
that's
okay.
used
Cool.
for the sewage treatment plant. So they
Interesting.
make
Okay.
use of the highest use of food is using it as food. So first off, don't create food waste. Eat it yourself as a human.
Right.
You put huge amounts of resources into food. It's a lot of very valuable material, valuable resource and
I
energy
see.
in it. The next best use for the food that humans don't eat is to have it go to animals because they can still use it as food.
I see. I see.
Farm
Okay.
animals on a farm would just work with pigs and chickens.
Yeah.
They were always eating leftovers from humans. And the next order is, well, you can digest it and turn it into energy, which is a good use, a digester, rather than having it sit in a landfill and turn it into methane, which just becomes a waste energy that just goes off in the atmosphere and
Yeah,
warms
of
up the
course.
planet. You can
Okay.
actually power something with it. And so we use it to power a water treatment plant in Sunnyvale.
Cool.
And
Okay.
then the final, well, I mean, the next down is composting,
Mm,
which is useful. It's turning into something useful, but it's less valuable than energy for us.
that makes
And
sense.
actually, the food cycling process in Sunnyvale, it first, if the animal processors don't want it, it goes to the digester, whatever's left from the digester, then goes to compost. And that still is a full cycle, though. And the compost grows something new. So there should zero goes to trash. We need to
I see.
eliminate all trash. So that's why I'm zero waste. So
I
I
see.
use my food waste bin also as a monitor to see, okay, what have I put in there? What could I have done differently? So typically, like nutshells, I have nothing else to do with them. Eggshells, though, I have considered actually using eggshells and turning them into, they're a good calcium source.
Mm,
I've got more than enough calcium from other sources, so I'll just let that go. And I trust the city to use that. That would be typically make it down to compost because
right.
calcium in nutshells are in eggshells, and the nutshells are that's compost. Or part of it could be digested. Some
Mhm.
could possibly eat like pigs and chickens.
Yeah,
I'm
that makes
constantly
sense.
looking at our refrigerator for what we have stored. And I'm looking at our food waste bin in our
Mm,
kitchen and seeing, okay, what's in there? What could I have done differently?
mm.
And how we use our food to make sure we use it all. Um, my son that lives at home right now because he doesn't make enough money to afford a place in Silicon Valley.
Yeah,
He works,
I'm gonna do the same thing. Yeah.
um, I wish I could get him more engaged in paying
Mm.
attention to stuff because he tends to leave a lot on his plate. It's like, dude, you could have just taken less, eaten all, rather than having to leave it on the plate
Yeah.
and expect the dishwasher to scrape.
Hmm.
It's a big waste to put in the dishwasher, and that's more energy used for the dishwasher to scrub it away.
Yeah.
Using a spatula is actually a really good tool to reduce food waste.
Mm.
Just a
Interesting.
silicone spatula.
Interesting.
It's heat resistant. It's very good at squeegeeing food off. So you can use it to clean plates off. So first off, I do clean my own plate. I try not to take any more than I'm going to eat.
Mhm.
And then with any leftovers that are left, we have three dogs. So sometimes if it's
Okay.
safe for the
Okay.
dogs to eat,
Yeah.
the plate goes on the ground and the dogs lick it off and they get a little treat. I
Yeah.
reward them to do, I use it as one of their treats.
Okay, cool.
And then I use a spatula to scrape it off into the food waste bin if I just can't do anything else with it. And then the dishwasher takes care of the rest. So
Okay, sounds good. Yeah.
yeah. And then, yeah, we use reusable Tupperware a lot,
Okay. Yeah.
all the leftovers. So they're sealed. Um, and then we can see the Tupperware is clean. It's
Hmm.
one of the few areas that I use. Well, I use glass as much as I can, which is see-through. But the
Hmm.
lids are typically, they're plastic
Right,
because
so it's harder to see. Yeah.
it's harder to get a.
Yeah.
There are a few glass containers with rubberized seals, but they're very rare.
Mm, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Canning jars actually are good,
Oh,
but
nice.
canning jars are hard to get stuff in and out of. So we've got these other things with snap lids that are
Yeah. Wait,
much,
okay, cool. Yeah.
and some plastic also.
Awesome. Wait,
Tupperware.
yeah, that was a really great answer. I'm gonna try and unpack some of those things. We can start off with like, a follow-up question to the like the service that the city of Sunnyvale does, kind of like distributing the food waste. Like they collect it, right? And then they distribute it to different I don't know, partners that have ways to properly use the leftovers.
Mhm.
Um, do you think this is something that, like individuals, I know you talked about like compost a little bit. Is compost something that an individual or like anything else that you mentioned and something that an individual might be able to do, within their own household if they don't have this service? Is like, can you envision that? Like,
There's two options for individuals who don't have a city provided service that can
right.
handle the food waste. And by the way, the two city provided services either they take the food waste as part of their compost stream, which is an
I see.
option, but
Yeah.
then you miss two higher level
Yeah.
energy options and food options. And then
Yeah.
there's food recycling, which Sunnyvale has.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
that has been a heavy lift for a lot of consumers because of this uh, not people are afraid of different things and they get it in their head and they can't let go of, oh, that's a dangerous use when it's not.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah.
the city of Sunnyvale has continued to spend considerable resources trying to get, and a lot of people just don't want the inconvenience. They think I just want to throw it all in the trash. One spot. I don't have to think
Yeah.
about separating food from my other waste.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so there's some stubborn people that just want to throw it away. So there's a lot
Mhm.
of education in that space.
I see.
Um, the Yeah, for people at home as an alternative, you can compost on your own with a compost pile. That's more work for an individual. I used to
Right.
maintain a hot compost pile, which is quite a bit of work. But if you do a lot of yard work and then you can mix some food scraps in there,
Yeah.
meat and bones is still a problem though in that because those
Mm,
are
okay.
very energy, nutrient dense
Right.
and will tend to attract rats,
Right.
which is another thing that you need to control around um,
Yeah.
your
Of
house.
course. Yeah.
The other option is a worm bin, which is a
Okay.
variation on compost. And it's, again, more work. I have some friends who've done worm bins.
Okay.
Although when Sunnyvale introduced its food recycling facility, several people I know in Sunnyvale said, wow, that's even better than my worm bins. I'll just go with that.
Yeah.
I have some other friends that have done worm bins. They've grown the worms and tried great compost. If you're a gardener, worm
Mm, yeah, of course.
droppings are awesome for a garden. Um, but that's more work. Although you can see them as pets too.
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
Worm bin pets, and
Yeah.
they're very happy to eat human leftover food. So those are two other options for individuals, other than well, it's reduce, reuse, recycle. So
Okay.
reduce first. Try not to have food waste to start with. Reuse would be like worm bin and other sources, and then recycle, well, would be the composting.
Mm, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool. Um, Great answer. And we're gonna go a little bit deeper now. You mentioned like your fridge as, like one of the main tools that you use to kind of gauge how much food you have left, like what leftovers you have, what you prioritize when you eat, when you cook your meals and you
Hmm.
like what you're eating. Within the fridge, is there a specific system that you use? An example could be like, oh, I only put leftovers on the top shelf because that's the first place I look. Or like, like, do I order things a certain way? Yeah,
Um, no, let's see. I try to make sure the leftovers are in the front of whatever is
I
there.
see.
So you
Yeah,
see
yeah, that
them
makes sense.
first. But I'm also trying to monitor what we have in the food in the fridge that's perishable. So we don't have that much food, so we can see through pretty easily
I
what's
see,
the
I
back
see.
of the
Okay.
fridge. We keep it I'd say like half-ish full, between, but a lot of it's water again for
Right.
thermal.
Right.
Um, well, actually, when I say a lot of it's water, about a third of it is water. I've got one shelf dedicated to water containers
I
and
see.
one
Yeah.
shelf in the door that's dedicated to water. So there's one sh shelf in the main area that has water jugs. I used to be using just plastic water jugs where you purchase water like at
Right.
a
You
store,
can use it, yeah.
but I've gone away from plastic. Although it is lightweight, it's got large volume. I'm currently using glass half-gallon containers rather than
I
gallon
see.
plastic
Yeah.
containers. Because I'm trying to reduce plastic because
Right.
we have a lot of plastic waste. Although the glass containers have a downside in that they're heavier, they're slipperier, and I did have one of my something happened, and one of my shells broke, and the glass broke.
That's not fun, yeah.
I don't know how that happened exactly, but something happened at some point. So
Yeah.
we have some glass breakage. So, glass versus plastic, anyway. Um, so back to the fridge. So no really well-defined systematic way other than trying to keep leftovers very visible and other perishables visible, not having a completely packed refrigerator so I can really quickly assess just by looking at it, what do we need to use up first
I
or
see.
next? And being
Okay.
aware of how long I've kept like more like vegetables and meats and
Yeah.
making sure that like the meat drawer actually gets a little bit hidden. And one time there was something hidden in the back that I'd forgot about for a couple of weeks and thinking,
Right.
oh man, that went
Yeah.
bad.
Right.
That had to go to food
Yeah, I
recycling.
think it's like the most common thing that everyone experiences when using a fridge. Yeah.
Yeah. But meat, I try to keep it longer than a couple of days. So I only buy a
Okay.
day or two out. Oh, one other technique is just a little unusual. I shop by bike. And
I
so
see.
I don't buy massive amounts like people in cars will tend to do, and then only shop once every week or two.
Mhm.
I tend to shop every few days and pay attention to what I'm just buying what I need for the next few days.
Okay.
I mean, a few things um, like Vegemite. I'm not sure you know about Vegemite. That'll last for years without even being in a refrigerator.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
let it forever. Or salt and other things that just are minerals that just last forever.
Yeah.
Those I will buy in bulk and just leave around. But
Mm.
other stuff, I'm paying attention to how long things are, what's perishable, what's not, and then making sure that we've got a plan for how we're going to use it before it is not very
Okay.
useful anymore.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Nice. Awesome. Just writing some quick things down. Okay, and this is the last follow-up question. I know like overall, like throughout all of the answers and the things you talked about, education was kind of like an overarching theme. I'm wondering, do you personally or do your, I know you talked about your son, like, getting extra, like putting extra food on his plate, not being able to finish it. Um, do you feel that like there's a gap in education, or that like you don't have access to like education around food waste, or like is there do you find that the education piece is like kind of a major piece, a missing piece, in the food waste puzzle?
Let's see, it's like for my son, he's got all the education around him, but he just chooses to ignore it because he
I
doesn't want to
see.
bother.
Okay.
So in that respect, motivation is important, and
Okay.
having it become a social norm is really important.
I see.
But he's in a society where people just discard food waste like doesn't really matter, when in
Yeah.
fact it really does matter a lot. But for him, it's like he's got everything he wants. It's like extra work for
Mhm.
him. He doesn't want to
Yeah.
put that extra work in. Um, yeah, so
Okay.
it's about values and socialization.
Okay. I
We
see.
need a social movement to help back up the education. Um, Yeah, as parts, motivation, marketing, how people get motivated to do stuff, and then you can provide good information for them.
I
As
see.
far as
Yeah.
information, there are a lot of great educational resources available at your fingertips now with the internet. There's so much available to
Yeah.
all of us that makes it. much easier. And being for education on the education side, people who do get into zero waste look at the food waste and everything, and then it becomes part of your how you your life story and how your habits are formed and how you run your life. And then it
Yeah.
becomes actually pretty easy and natural. It's really not much work. In fact, it even saves work and it saves money. But again, we are in a very wealthy country. We
Right.
don't care as much about money. We'll happily toss money down the drain, which is really unfortunate. We're just hurting ourselves in the long run. We
I
need to
see.
budget better. And if you live within a budget, then you'll be better managed. Like
Okay.
this
Yeah.
factory operation I mentioned earlier. If you
Yeah,
actually
yeah, that makes sense.
they want to
Oh,
maximize their money.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, so to me it seems like starting with the motivation, then you like if you start with motivation, you could build the habits, and then that changes the lifestyle, and then that affects the food waste. Is
Yep. And
that kind of aligned?
education feeds into all of those to help
Yeah.
you, but you gotta have the motivation first. If you don't have
Right.
the motivation, then
Okay.
you're not even gonna get off the ground.
I see. So I guess this is a follow-up question to that. Obviously there's like programs and stuff where people are like being more like conscious about their food waste, including yourself. So what would be like most people's motivation to do this? Like what have you seen are the strongest indicators of motivation?
Okay, it's let's see. This is very specific to different individuals. Some people are
I see.
motivated by peer pressure,
I see.
right?
Okay.
Their friends are doing it, or everyone's doing it, and so
Yeah.
I might as well do it as well. Um, so that you can get that through school, you get that through socialization and your
Okay.
friend work. Um, Other people see it as a challenge. That's actually where I came from a little bit. Actually, although
Okay.
the let's see, when I looked at what I wanted to leave behind for my life and realized that, our kids are our future and what's going to happen to them, that was actually probably the biggest single motivation to make sure that our human species is able to continue reasonably.
Of course.
But we
Yeah.
need to regulate ourselves. We just can't run rampant. Life run rampant, by the way, is a very definition of cancer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't want cancerous growth. I want a Garden of Eden with a balanced growth. So I try to take a balanced approach to everything I do. And
Mhm.
I'm constantly re-examining what I do and how I do and why I do it. And so it's a constant cycle. I'm always evaluating. Um, Sometimes more intensively than other times, but I'm always checking back and say, okay, how could I have done that better? Because it'll just make my life better and make my world better. Um, so it's a lot of introspection
I see.
along the way, continuous
I see.
improvement. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Cool. Okay. So I had a question about challenges, but you went over that a little bit. But aside from what you've already said, is there anything that you would say is like the greatest challenge for people to not waste food aside from like I guess extra like work on their end, like individuals end, um, maybe just like not thinking about it, not having that motivation. Is there any other challenge or barrier that you see to reducing
That
food
is
waste?
the biggest ongoing barrier I see is
Okay,
just motivation and
I see.
understanding why
Okay,
it's important. People just
I
can't be
see.
bothered.
Okay, I see.
People are to some extent overloaded, but this is a
Mhm.
pretty important thing, and it's really not that hard.
I see. Yeah, of course. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the last question. So as you know, like me and my team are trying to understand the problem and build some sort of solution to address food waste, for on an individual level. Um, so like when you think about this problem and like everything that we've talked about, and trying to solve it from an individual level, like what do you envision a solution like to look like? So like I guess what would be your ideal solution to help individuals solving their food waste problems?
Well,
And like doesn't have to be realistic at all. It can be like this is meant to be like a very open-ended, like perfect world type of yeah.
yeah, there are no perfect worlds. Perfect. There is no single magic bullet solution.
I see.
Um, let's see. Well, it's really a societal approach to
Okay.
making sure that it's part of our culture to pay attention. Um,
Okay.
Actually, in a lot of ways, I admire the Japanese culture. They coming out of World War II, they had they paid very close attention to the best practices for a lot of different things, and their culture was just attuned to that. So
Mhm.
they, as far as all the cultures in the world, they're one that most naturally approach zero waste. So they've got a
Mm.
million ways to sort things, to make sure that the stuff is recycled.
Yeah.
I'm very attentive to detail and to simplicity, and living. And in Scandinavia also is actually pretty. They have a simple approach to life also. Um, so developing a waste minimization culture, I think, would be the
Okay.
best thing to start with. And I see the most successes in societies
Okay.
in the world that have taken that approach, where you live simply and enjoy life for life and not worry about it. It goes against a lot of Americans in that I want to die with the most toys. Yeah, you can't take it with you. It's always like, getting the
Yeah.
most, biggest, fastest. And the most, biggest, fastest doesn't mean the happiest.
Hmm.
So like us, Finland and Denmark are some of the happiest countries in the world. And it's not about being the biggest or fastest. It's about actually enjoying what you have.
Mm.
Um,
Okay.
so I very much admire a lot of Asian cultures that actually are balanced and just look for, um, moderation and enjoyment and being in the moment,
See.
um, rather than just splurging and just spending
Mm.
gazillion resources and thinking you have to be a billionaire or millionaire
Hmm.
to be a success. Um, yeah, I stepped back from my high tech career in 2016
Mm.
because we had enough. And I felt I
Mm.
could, I'd been going zero waste for quite some time, and I reduced our income, our spend, and realized when I redid our budget, I didn't have to make gobs of money anymore to be able to live in Silicon Valley.
It's crazy, right?
We actually reduce our spend rate a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
and still live a very happy life and be more rewarding. So
Yeah.
I chose to do that. And I'm retiring early without having to spend gobs of money, which has let me retire early versus some of my friends. They have very big mortgages because they extended themselves or other
Mm.
expense.
Overconsumption. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just spending so much money, they can't imagine themselves on a different path. So they have to continue making a lot of money, can't retire. But I'm retiring. Oh, I retired actually at 62 officially.
Mm. Yeah.
Oh,
Congrats.
and it's
Congratulations.
semi-retirement. Actually, that was December this past year. In 2016, when I left tech, when I worked with your father,
Yeah.
a lot of people saw that as retirement, but that was actually more of a gear shift.
Okay.
'Cause I worked for nonprofits then for 8 years.
I see. Yeah.
Um, so I could actually start working on how to reduce budget and live within a smaller means, which led
Mm.
to being able to retire early. My wife's also retiring early, not because we've made huge amounts of money. We've done okay, but
Right.
in Silicon Valley terms, we're quite modest, but it's enough for us to have a okay retirement, do a little bit of traveling.
Yeah. And probably be a lot more content and happy with, the lifestyle and everything else, right? Yeah.
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 Um, and yeah, so food waste and our food patterns and like when we eat out, we always I try to always I forget this actually. I need to get better at this. Is take I bring reusable containers with me to the restaurant,
Oh,
and that we
okay.
put package up all of our leftovers in our own containers rather than having to have containers from the restaurant that are disposable coming back with us.
Mhm.
That's one of the things I've got to be more systematic at. But we don't eat out that often, which is the one reason we don't. I mean, we eat out maybe once or twice a month. And we do get takeout periodically. And whenever I get takeout, I always bring my own containers. In fact, when I go shopping, I always bring my own containers. So I know exactly what I'm getting. I'm putting it in my own container that goes right in the fridge or right on the shelf in my own container. So I don't have all that other waste. It's also associated with food waste. It's part of the whole pattern that I've set
I
for
see.
myself. I'm trying to minimize waste in every different direction. And
Yeah.
that definitely helps with the food waste and reducing food waste naturally because I'm paying attention to that as well as everything
Right.
else.
Right.
And there's a group called Silicon Valley Reduces that's part
Okay.
of a larger movement called USA or United States US Reduces. There's a group in Canada. There are all these reduces
Cool.
places
Yeah.
that are focused on using reusable containers to use plastic waste mostly. But
Mm.
all of those people actually do focus on reducing food waste. There's another woman in Sunnyvale who's known as a zero waste chef, and she's more
Oh.
famous on social media and publicly, and she's published some books in that
Mm.
space. Um, I'm currently using the phrase zero waste engineer.
Yeah.
I'm not being as active socially and on with my followers as such.
Okay.
I've re-engineered my whole lifestyle in every different aspect to reduce waste. But she's done really great with food waste reduction. She grows a lot of her own food. And so if you grow your own food, you have a much better appreciation for where food is going and how you
Mm.
use food and the whole cycle. So she grows a lot of her own food at her house in Sunnyvale. She does a lot of fermentation. Makes a lot of food that I don't even make, but I do make my own yogurt. I make other stuff. I make my own granola.
Mm. Yeah,
You
nice.
start making more food, you start having a better appreciation for the amount of effort goes into food, and you
Right.
start relishing stuff that really does taste better. It's not just cheap fast food. I said, I don't want fast calories. I want slow food that I can really enjoy and appreciate.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
fast food, wow, so much wasted.
Well, Tim, thank you so much. That was the last question, and I really appreciated, taking your time out of your day again for this, and giving your perspective because I think you had a very unique perspective among all of the people that we've interviewed, and a lot of great insight and advice into this problem. Um, and so, yeah, do you have any last questions or thoughts before we wrap up?
Um, it would just to echo what I said earlier, is just pay careful attention to the world around you.
Yeah.
Think about how you want the world to be when you leave. And I live by the mantra, I take memories and photos
Hmm.
and try not to leave any waste behind.
Mm, I see.
I'm trying to leave the world a better place after I'm gone. Um, so
Yeah.
that's the goal.
No,
And
that's
it came
beautiful.
from American youth hostels also. Like when you stay at a youth hostel, you're trying to leave the place that you stayed better than when you arrived.
Oh, that's a great, yeah. That's a great life motto. Yeah. Oh, Tim, thank you so much. I will definitely stay in touch and I'll keep you updated on, progress. And if we ever need any advice or like mentorship or anything and related to this project, I'll definitely reach out again. Keep you posted. And yeah, it was great to meet you.
And another question for you. So
Yeah.
is this a college level project you're doing right now?
Yeah, so this is not for any class or anything. It's part of a campus group. And so like the group is run through, Design for America, like I said.
Mhm.
But it's not for any class or like assignment or anything. This is just, passion project for like me and the other members of my team. So
I
um
think you're great. You're pursuing this. A
yeah.
passion project for me when I was in college, which led to a lot of this. I
Yeah.
did a cross-country fundraising bike ride for Oxfam America,
Oh,
and
perfect. Yeah.
raised that, and it was to reduce world hunger at the
That's
time.
amazing. Yeah.
But the whole bicycling mantra of just bicycling everywhere and reducing waste through bicycling. I hope you bike wherever you are.
Yeah.
That's a great way to reduce waste and keep yourself healthier. Also, it's sort of part of the same cycle, as it were.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, again, thank you so much, Tim. I'll stay in touch and yeah, I'll keep you posted on everything. Have a great rest of
Okay.
your day.
I look forward to having you great success in your project.
Goodbye.
Okay. Bye.